Let's start with the basics of body mass index, or BMI. This is the metric used to classify people as underweight, normal weight, overweight, or obese, and there are three classes of obesity based on BMI values. Your BMI is your weight in kilograms divided by the square of your height measured in meters. If you weigh 100 kilograms, roughly 220 pounds, and you're 2 meters tall, that's just under 6 feet 7 inches, your BMI would be 100 kilograms divided by 4, 2 meters squared, and 100 divided by 4 is 25. According to the BMI classification, a BMI value of 25 would be on the borderline between normal weight and overweight. So Michael Jordan is 6 feet 6 inches, just under 2 meters, and his playing weight was 195, which is well under 100 kilograms. Larry Bird was 220 pounds, but he was also taller at 6 feet 9 inches. Neither of these NBA stars would have been classified as overweight. Can you see why? Okay, now it's time for you to calculate your own BMI. Start by converting your weight into kilograms. Remember how to do this? It was in your first lab. I'm not going to tell you. Okay, so also calculate your height in meters and be as precise as possible. Don't just guesstimate. And be honest, no one's watching. Now square your height in meters. Now take your weight in kilograms and divide that by the square of your height in meters, and that's your BMI. Now look at the chart. Where do you fit? As far as your health and well-being is concerned, it's generally better to be leaner. To put things very bluntly, obesity dramatically increases the risk of death. Period. This is demonstrated by this graph in rather stark terms. The height of the bars shows the relative risk of death for different values of BMI, and this is for non-smoking white men. For men with BMI corresponding to slightly underweight to normal weight, the risk value is approximately 1.0. For obese men with a BMI value between 35 and 39, the relative risk of death is about 2.0, twice that of normal weight men. For even more severely obese men with a BMI above 40, the risk is nearly triple. Roughly the same pattern exists for women, though it's not quite as severe. Obesity kills, and it does so by increasing the risk of debilitating or lethal medical conditions, including type 2 diabetes, which we discussed earlier, but also cardiovascular disease and certain types of cancer, like breast cancer, colorectal cancer, and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It also compromises a person's quality of life through other impacts on one's physical and mental health. Now, obesity is also considered a preventable cause of death. Preventable in the sense that a person can avoid the added risk of death by not being obese. Smoking used to be the leading preventable cause of death in the United States, but with the decline in the prevalence of cigarette smoking and an increasing prevalence of overnutrition, obesity has now overtaken tobacco use as the leading cause of preventable death in our country. Cigarettes continue to kill lots and lots of people, but junk food is killing even more Americans than our cigs these days. It's a pretty amazing statistic and one that has us scrambling. At the level of a single person, the causes of obesity are pretty easy to identify. Diet, the overconsumption of calories, a sedentary lifestyle, and to a certain extent genetics. But there are other factors to consider as well, such as a person's mental state and sociocultural influences. We'll focus on diet here, and I think I've already told you once to get off your butt and be more active. The core of the problem seems so simple. People gain weight if they absorb more food calories than they burn. Remember the video on fat metabolism? All of that excess of acetyl coenzyme A's that result from your consumption of more food molecules than you can use for ATP synthesis. These are stored as adipose tissue, or fat. If Americans are getting larger, it's because they're eating more calories, while they may also be burning off fewer calories if their lifestyles are becoming more sedentary. And it's not just a problem of the United States. Obesity is increasing worldwide, and it's because people are eating more calories, obviously. The harder question is, why are people eating more now than they were before? Understanding the causes of increasing obesity as a public health concern is a more challenging question than what causes a single person to gain weight. And there are several models, that is, explanations, that can be offered. We'll be looking at 3 of these and considering the evidence supporting each model. The first model states that there's simply more food available for people to eat, more now than ever before. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, in the year 2002, the amount of food that was available in the United States came out to 3,770 calories worth of food every day for every man, woman, and child. Now, this is a lot more than what the average person needs. I'm not saying that all of these calories were consumed. Quite a bit of it was simply wasted. How much of this was actually consumed as opposed to being thrown out is a much more difficult thing to keep track of than the amount of food that was out there and available for people to eat. Compare this with 1961, during which the estimated number of calories available per capita was under 3,000 in the US. This overabundance of food is most pronounced in developed nations. In sub-Saharan Africa, the food availability in 2002 was 2,176 kilocalories per day, much less than the United States. The second model relates the increasing obesity of the United States population with changes in the availability of those high-calorie, low-nutrition foods that we were discussing earlier. This chart shows the increase in calories consumed over the second half of the 20th century, and it's accounted for by the increased consumption of carbohydrates. It looks like the consumption of fats and proteins stayed about the same. Now check out this graph. Over that same period, sweetened carbonated beverages, soda, is being consumed in higher and higher quantities. It is almost creepy the way the increase in soda consumption corresponds nearly perfectly with the increases in carbohydrate intake. Now, the basic argument of the third model is that the standards for portion size have changed. And to give an example, the original McDonald's hamburger patty was 1.6 ounces of ground beef, and the total calorie count for a cheeseburger was around 300 calories. In 1960, this would have been the centerpiece of a standard fast food meal. In contrast, a modern fast food single patty cheeseburger, the Carl's Jr. Original $6 burger, has considerably more meat and 991 calories. There's a recursive dynamic that's gotten us to this point. If you put more food in front of people, they'll eat more. And over time, people become conditioned to expect larger and larger portions. Food suppliers are pressured to accommodate this demand by delivering more and more food, or else they'll be outcompeted by other suppliers who are willing to crank up their serving size. So those are the 3 models that I'm presenting to you here. And I hope you're thinking to yourself that there's not going to be a single answer to this complex pickle that we're in. It's not a matter of saying that this model is right and the other 2 are wrong. Like a lot of phenomena that science attempts to explain, the causes are sometimes numerous, and this is certainly the case here.